It was after midnight in the heart of New York City when Clare Dalton, the powerful CEO of a multi-million-dollar tech empire, found herself barefoot, exhausted, and locked outside her luxury apartment. No phone, no keys, no way in. Only a box of cold pasta clutched in her hands. She was used to running boardrooms, negotiating million-dollar deals, and commanding respect. But that night she was just a woman stranded in a dimly lit hallway, fighting rising panic. And then, from the shadows came the quiet squeak of a stroller, and a stranger who would change everything. Clare Dalton had built her entire life on control. Every decision she made was calculated, from the color of her boardroom suits to the timing of her morning coffee. But on that suffocating July night, all her careful control shattered with the slam of one door. She had stepped outside her apartment for just a moment, drawn by the sound of muffled voices echoing down the hallway. The heavy door clicked shut, and suddenly, her world narrowed to a locked apartment and a long stretch of silence. She leaned against the wall, her silk blouse clung to her skin, her heart pounding with frustration. There was no assistant to call, no security guard nearby, no quick solution. Just the absurdity of being a CEO trapped by her own locked door. Then faintly at first she heard it, the soft hum of a lullaby, wheels squeaking gently against the carpet. She lifted her head. At the far end of the corridor appeared a man in a worn hoodie, pushing a stroller. Inside it, a tiny girl with rosy cheeks fought against sleep, clutching a stuffed bear. The man stopped when he noticed her, sitting on the floor, shoeless, hugging a pasta container like a lifeline. His eyes, though tired, were kind. "You all right, ma'am?" he asked. Clare laughed bitterly. Locked out, no keys, no dignity. He chuckled. Dignity's overrated. And that was the moment an unlikely story began. His name was Ryan, and the little girl was Ella. She was 4 years old, restless from nightmares, and midnight hallway walks had become their strange routine. Clare, still embarrassed, offered him some of her pasta in half-hearted humor. To her surprise, Ryan actually sat down, a respectful distance away, letting Ella clutch her teddy while he listened. In the quiet, their worlds unfolded. Ryan explained that he was a handyman by trade, a man who once fixed fences and repaired appliances before the company he worked for shut down. Since then, it had been a scramble, raising Ella on his own, picking up odd jobs, doing whatever it took to keep food on the table. Clare blinked, struck by the weight of his story. She had just fired a vice president hours earlier, her decision made in a sterile boardroom. Yet here was a man fighting battles far greater than the ones on her spreadsheets. When he noticed her struggling glance at the locked door, Ryan stood. "I might be able to help." From the stroller's storage basket, he pulled out a metal hanger. With practiced patience, he crouched near the lock. Clare raised an eyebrow. "Seriously? Let's just say I learned a few tricks," he said with a wink. 2 minutes later, with a soft click, the door swung open. Clare stared, speechless. "You actually did it." Ryan grinned. "Guess CEOs need rescuing sometimes too." The stress of her brutal day melted into laughter. Clare had not laughed like that in months, and the sound startled even her. She invited him, hesitantly, to breakfast the next morning. "My treat, but only if you bring crayons to the table," she added, glancing at Ella. The following day, at a small corner cafe, Clare sat across from Ryan, dressed not in silk but in simple jeans. Ryan wore his hoodie again. Ella was busy scribbling suns and stick figures on the paper menu. For the first time in years, Clare's phone stayed face down on the table. They talked, really talked. Ryan asked what she did, and when she admitted she was the Clare Dalton, his eyes widened. "The CEO Clare Dalton?" he asked. She shrugged with a modest smile. "Most days, except when I'm locked out in my hallway." He laughed, a full, real laugh that made Ella giggle too. That laughter lit something in Clare she had forgotten existed, something beyond profit margins and quarterly reports. Something human. Weeks passed. Their casual breakfasts turned into long walks in the park, late-night talks on park benches, and Ella tugging on Claire's hand as if she had always been there. 3 months later, Ryan was no longer just between jobs. He was helping Claire launch a new foundation, one that funded training programs for single parents. It had been his idea, his pride, his purpose reborn. Claire never forgot how it all began. A locked door, a lonely hallway, and a single father who stopped to help when he could have walked by. What grew between them was not charity, not pity, but respect. Claire never treated Ryan as a project, and he never saw her as untouchable. They built something real, on pasta containers, hallway laughter, and the quiet strength of two people carrying very different burdens. Ella adored Claire, often climbing into her lap with crayons and bedtime questions, and every now and then she would ask to hear the story of the night Miss Claire got stuck outside. Claire would retell it, her voice warm, her heart full. The moral, Ella, she always ended, is that sometimes the doors we think are closing on us are actually opening us to something better. A new friend, a new chance, a new chapter. And while the world still knew Clare Dalton as a commanding CEO, the people who mattered most knew her as something far simpler and far more important. A woman who once got locked out and let kindness in.